we have now done 6 events in the race events, and 2 of those events we have done are race events. But now we are going to get down to what will more or less be a reoccurring theme for most of these remaining events, and that will be the championship events. However, before we get down to those, I will need to switch over to some racing gear, because I figure since we are now into championship territory again, I figure now is a good time for me to do so. And of course, I'm not going to choose one of the typical black, silver or white helmets. I'm going to choose one of the racing helmets, because that is what I like doing. And I'll also pick whatever bits of riding gear I have not already used, because, you know, I can diversify that way. And I'll go with... yeah, that'll work. And last but not least, let's go with... sure, that'll work. I think that'll work as a start. So now that I've changed my fucking riding gear again, let's now get down to the race events, for which we have now done 6, and we are ready to move on to 7. So, most of these events for the rest of the game are going to be championship races. And our next 7 events, if I've counted that correctly, are all championship events, as we've got the TMAX Cup, the 2-Stroke Series, 80s Hero Series, 125cc Competition Model Series, 250cc Competition Model Series, Super Sports 600, and the Superbike 1000. All of these, of course, are championship events, and then after that we've got Master of Eagles, which is technically a single race event, and then we've got this, and yeah, most of these remaining events are championship events. But let's now begin with our first one, the TMAX Cup, which is limited to the racing modified Yamaha TMAX. That's precisely what I have here, and we are doing 3 races in our first championship, as we are heading to New York, Apricot Hill, and Tokyo Route 246. And I am pretty sure we will get a new bike, but luckily we will more or less have to win the championship in order for us to get the bike. So for most of these events from now on, we're only going to get 1 bike, as opposed to us getting multiple bikes before. I'm pretty sure this will be easy. So, as I would have expected, pretty much fun for all the family in terms of colour schemes, as we begin here in the streets of Manhattan. And don't really need to practice. I am convinced in saying this will be pretty easy for me to pull off. I'm fairly confident in saying it will not take me too long to work my way to the front. I'm pretty much just, well, free to go as easy as I please. Because I don't think it's going to be too hard. I don't think at this stage I'm going to have too much trouble with winning these races. And already up into P3. And going by a lot of billboards at the moment. And the gap is 5 seconds to the leader as I head into this right-hander and getting off Times Square, and now heading up to the Brooklyn Plaza Hotel as well as the Empire State Building, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is somewhere up here because I have seen it. and heading up into these right-handers. I'm pretty sure taking the lead is going to be no difficult task. I just have to make sure I hold on. And there we go. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the Empire State Building right behind me. But anyway, on the backstretch now, heading up to Columbus Circle, which is this roundabout right here. And heading past the Earth statue, which I'm pretty sure is what that is. And so far so good. Oh, and I tripped over the curb. Fortunately, however, I am only riding a scooter, which means at this stage I do not have to worry about slipping myself up, because I am technically riding a racing scooter. And as I would have expected, I have already taken the lead before the end of the first lap. I kind of knew this was going to be pretty easy. I am also convinced in saying that if I don't make too many mistakes, then the clean sweep should pretty much be all mine. But either way, we're back on Times Square once again, and we're now heading back up the road. And we shall see how we go. As I have got a huge gap now to second place. I'm pretty sure not all of these championship races are going to be piss easy for me to win, but for the first one at least, I kind of figured this would not take me too long to work my way up to the race lead with, as I'm now approaching these right-handers, and everything seems to be okay. And I have now pretty much torn myself away from the rest of the competition. So, as I said before, this is going to be a pretty easy clean sweep. Of course, I do think these races are just a little bit long for these racing scooters. I'm okay with doing 2 laps, but 3 laps I think is a little bit excessive if you consider just how much of a gap I already have. I kind of figured the rubber banding was not going to be too strong, but I certainly wouldn't have been anticipating myself to be just straight up dominating by this much, because I already have a 13.6 second gap to second place, which, as you can imagine at this stage, is, well, huge. And I'm pretty certain in saying that in the first 3 Forza Motorsport games, they did also have a New York City course that looked very similar to this one. It was definitely a loose representation of what the street course was at the time. Even though, until I eventually do decide to buy myself an Xbox, I likely never will be able to play through any of the Forza games. And also, because of just how long both Forza 2 and Forza 3 really are, let alone Forza 4, I do begin to wonder if it really is worth it for me to just quite literally put myself through the over-excessive pain of just simply saying, and I have hit the wall. Well, had to happen eventually. I kind of knew on the exit of that roundabout I was gonna hit the wall eventually, but fuck it. I don't really care. And up Times Square once again. And there we go, easy win. And that took me 6 minutes and 13 seconds to win the first race. So then we had the yellow TMAX in second, the black TMAX in third, and the red TMAX in fourth. So 1 race is down, 2 races to go. Hopefully these next 2 will provide a bit more excitement. Have I actually saved a replay in New York yet? I know I probably don't need to, but I just want to check to be sure. At least not recently anyway. I'm pretty sure I haven't. Although then again, I don't think it really matters. You know what? No. I'll leave it for the next one where I can get a stronger shot. Anyway, on now to the second race. So championship events, they're very much like the championship events in all other GT games. You're basically just trying to score as many points as you can, and then once you have, well, you'll basically emerge as the winner. I more or less know what needs to happen here. I know the fields are going to get very spread out here. And I'm also pretty sure that for these other 2 venues, I will probably get some clearer shots of my Yamaha. Even though I was kind of waiting to see how long it was before my rider just went head-on into a wall. Well, head-on into the guardrail. I was kind of waiting to see how long it was before that happened. Or Armco, as we call it in Europe. So, under the Dunlop tyre bridge and now heading into the hairpin before we go into the S-bend. And already up into second. Fortunately, however, Apricot Hill is a bit shorter in length than New York. I'm pretty sure this will not take me too long to fully fight my way through. And I am already up into second. And now, diving to the outside and making no contact, I just simply had the position well in hand. And a 141 is what I set at the end of the first lap, and the gap is now 7 tenths. Hopefully, since this track is shorter, we will not get as strung out as we were before. And 1.7 seconds is the gap, so I'm pretty sure we're going to be more or less pulling away with this one, the way I see it. So 3.8 seconds is now the gap, and I'm running wide. Oh god, oh shit, oh god, fuck me, okay. I'm gonna have to remember to brake for the outside of that corner if I'm gonna make it through without wrecking myself. Even though I more or less did try my hardest to completely wreck myself, but fortunately, however, because I'm riding a racing scooter, and I'm doing it again, but not quite in as precarious of a position as I was before, and now it looks like things are going to be looking up from here. It could also be because I am recording this late on a Thursday night. And the gap is now 7.5 seconds. So something tells me we might actually get someone else finishing this race aside from me. If that's possible. Anyway. 8.4 seconds is now the gap, and I appear to be moving forwards from here. And heading through this 180 degree corner. I think that's right. And heading up through the hairpin now and up through to the S corner. And then we just have one chicane and one left-hander to go. Alrighty. Heading down the hill now into the chicane. And hitting 72 as I head through the chicane. And this time I do manage to keep my bike on the road without running wide onto the grass. And through the final corner. And this is going to be an easy win. And as I would have expected, same finishing order as before. Same finishing order as before. So, 2 wins to me, 2 seconds to the orange, 4/3 to the black, and 2/4 to the red. So we're pretty much even Stevens in terms of the points we're scoring at the moment. And it doesn't look like that's really going to change. Anyway, 2 races down, 1 race to go. I think I'll leave it till the last race to save it. I probably will get some good shots at Apricot Hill, but since I recently saved a replay there, I might as well move on to the 3rd race in Tokyo. So, pretty much know what I need to do now, and before we continue, I will take a sip of water. Okay, let's move on. Let's begin the 3rd and final race of the TMAX Cup. And this, I am pretty sure, is going to be about as easy as the first 2 races were. In other words, I very much anticipate this race to go about as easily as the first 2 races did. Sorry, my voice is really not wanting to stay in place right now. Although then again, I am recording this late on a Thursday night, so that probably doesn't help, but either way, I figured I might as well just, well, get this out the way. Because why not? So, up into 3rd now. I'm pretty sure this course is probably of similar length, is probably of a similar distance to New York. Gap is now 8.7 seconds to the leader, so I might actually have to try and go for the race lead this time. However, I'm convinced in saying that once I do manage to work my way up to the race lead, it'll more or less be easier by the time I get to the end, and that's a wall. But it's okay, we're fine. And heading through the hairpin, and now I just have to go after my leading opponent. And already up into the 2-minute mark, and I think it's fair to say this race is definitely more of a challenge than what the first 2 races were. And gap is now 3.5 seconds, so I'm actually having to push this time in order to work my way up to the race lead. So heading through the right-hander, a little bit wide there as I got onto the curb, but still able to keep the bike under my own power, and I am steadily closing in on the leader. No one is behind me, there's just one guy in front of me as I head round the outside, and there we go. And so, we are now up into the race lead. And that's a wall. 2.8 seconds is now the gap. And I would say we're doing pretty well at the moment. Because even though I'm not exactly at my most energetic, I still feel as though this is more or less going to be another piss-easy win by the time I get to the end. And that's more or less what I was anticipating. But nonetheless, I am out here with the race lead, and it looks like it's pretty much going to be another extensive lead, the way I see things. So 2:08, I can definitely say this course is at least a couple of 100 meters longer than New York, and I'm pretty sure this is more or less going to be another one of my typical Sunday drives, as the gap is now 5.1 seconds to second place. And in this race alone, I have ridden 7 miles. Hopefully, if it's possible, the racing will get just a little bit more competitive as we go further and further through the game. Of course, I won't be able to guarantee a clean sweep every time because, well, if I did, then how the hell would there be any competition? And so, we continue to press forwards, as 9.4 seconds is now the gap. So, something tells me this is going to be a pretty much done deal from what I can see here. And so, we press forwards. And I wouldn't be surprised if the margin of victory in the end is going to be at least 11 seconds. But at least I can say I actually had to try this time, which is one thing. And crossing the line at 1:14 and setting a time of a 2:06.5. And as I expected, Noah's Ark for pretty much the rest of the field, and 13 seconds in the end. Well, at least I can say somebody else actually finished this time. Even then, of course, if at the end of the day most of the racing was actually pretty dull. But that's more or less what I expected. So, clean sweep to me, clean sweep of runner-ups to the orange, clean sweep of thirds to the black, and a clean sweep of fourths to the red. And so, there we go. That is now the end of our first championship, and that only took me 26 minutes to get through those 3 races. And so, we save yet another replay. I also figured, well, if I was really going to see myself getting some intriguing shots, I'd be more likely to get them in Tokyo than I would in Manhattan. It's only because I know there's more spots where the sun is shining on the track, and whenever the sun shines on the track, I usually get better shots of the vehicle. So, for winning the championship, we get more riding gear, 2 more helmets, and as a result of us winning our first championship, we get the FZR 400 Racing Modified. And as ever, putting on my traditional number 24, because I can. And so, there we go. And, apparent as it might be, we obtain a special racing number. You may now change the number of the bike to a special number. Do you want to change the number from 24 to 1? This number is not available in the garage. No, not yet. I'll think about that eventually, but just not now. Anyway, those are our first 3 championship races now done, and ultimately, as I would have expected, easy clean sweep. And that now puts us up to lucky number 7. And so, we shall now check out our new prize bike. Because I am cool like that. And also because I am all-encompassing as well. Once I can find it. It's in here somewhere. I did spot it. I know you're in here somewhere. Here it is. A very blue Yamaha FZR 400 racing bike. You know what? I actually quite like this thing. In fact, I like it so much that I might consider changing to it. Although I will have to check and see what my opponents are for the next event. Anyways, that's the bike we win. And we are now officially 61.9% complete with the game. And next time we will be doing the 2-stroke series, coming in the next episode of Tourist Trophy.